14 miles, isn't it? Southwest of Pakistan's coastal city of Pasni. We'll bring you more details when they come in. Now it's time for the papers. So, welcome to our look ahead to what the papers are bringing us tomorrow. We are joined by the Daily Telegraph's political correspondent Laura Hughes. Good evening to you, Laura. Thanks for joining us. We're also joined by BuzzFeed reporter Aisha Ghani. Hi to you, Aisha. Thanks for joining us. Before we hear from them, let's have a quick run through some of the front pages. The Guardian there, leading with today's developments at Westminster as the government faced down a Conservative rebellion over Brexit. According to the Telegraph, the sustainability of the Eurozone is under threat after the IMF raised new concern about Greek debt. The paper pictures the former US President Barack Obama relaxing in the Caribbean. The Times reports on claims that Britain's tax burden is set to rise to its highest level for more than 30 years. The Eye speculates that British Gas will become the latest energy provider to announce price rises. The Metro leads on a new report which claims bank overdraft charges can cost up to 180% of the sum borrowed. Meanwhile, the Mail's headline is "New blow for 21 million savers after changes were announced to premium bonds." This is the FT, which says the London and Frankfurt stock exchanges are gambling on authorities giving the green light to their multi-billion euro tie-up. And according to the Express, freezing gales will hit the UK over the next 10 days. They love a weather story, don't they? Sometimes they don't get it right either, I've noticed. The Daily Telegraph, that's a headline we haven't seen for a while, the Greek debt crisis, a new one the EU is facing, according to the paper.
Yes, that's based on what the IMF had said today, and they've warned that Greece's debt is, on this awful path, and they've really the row is who's going to bail them out this time. They're saying, we don't want to do it. The IMF financiers are saying, not us this time. But it's interesting because they're going to be going to the EU and say, you guys need to help. So in July, it's all going to come to a head because Greece owes 7 billion euros. And Germany, at this moment in time, is really unwilling to help bail Greece out because Angela Merkel's got an election coming up. And I think a lot of populist parties in Germany are saying, well, why should hard-working Germans have to bail out, people working in Athens? It's not fair. So this is why it's
and
kind
there will
of
be that
threatening
feeling,
the whole
won't there,
Eurozone.
that there's good money being thrown after bad as well. If this is true, it hasn't worked, and the people of Greece, it'll be interesting to see how they react to this news as well.
Indeed. I mean, it is an alarming headline, but it was only in 2008 where we did have the first sort of Greek debt crisis, and that's been, I mean, it's been covered across, headlines, and we've seen how it's just been carrying on, and this won't go away. And I think it's intriguing that this headline's coming right now, especially when we're seeing some of the fault lines in Europe across this issue.
Yeah. Staying with money, also on the front page of the Daily Telegraph, tax burden to hit 30-year high as Hammond faces £34 billion black hole. The amount of tax paid in the UK is about to reach its highest level in 30 years.
Yeah, so I think it's like 37% of our national income is going to have been raised in taxes, which is humongous. It's actually the highest this has been since Margaret Thatcher. Yeah. So it's
and inland revenue have really been hitting everybody as hard as possible.
Yeah.
They have been under orders, haven't they, for some time, to get as much more tax as possible into the coffers.
And that's what the IFS are warning, actually, is that we're facing these humongous levels of debt, this £34 billion black hole, which is going to mean that perhaps we're going to be faced with more taxes and we're going to see more cuts to public services, which at a time where we're seeing crises in social care, the NHS, local councils are revolting, saying they want to increase their taxes because they just can't cope. This is really bad news. And if we're going to get ourselves out of this deficit by the 2020s, Philip Hammond's going to have to do something.
Aisha, I mean, BuzzFeed's really got its ear to the ground on what people think, because often you're posting their views and reporting on their views. Austerity is in danger of being seen as something that is not only painful, but perhaps when you look at Greece, when you look at what we're hearing about here in the UK, it's not working.
No, exactly. And I mean, it was meant to be a target, and we're just seeing that it's not working again and again. And, there's people we speak to, especially young millennials. For example, today there was a white paper on housing, and it just seems as though, there are some measures, to helps, you know, ordinary families, but then there are many other things that sort of take a few steps back, and like lots of people we speak to, just like, you know, how are they sort of thinking about people on the ground? And this is a really serious issue, and
it's
so
perhaps why we have seen this anti-establishment rise of the strength of the right as well around the world, because people are losing faith if they're not losing trust in politics.
Yes, I think it's fair to say that, you know, a lot of people are disillusioned with establishment politics, but again, that's not a reason to sort of blame it just on that. There's many factors there, but you know, something like this isn't going to help.
No, and just when you think it couldn't get any worse, you read the front page of the Metro. Exposed, banks charging more than the sharks. So this, as I understand it, Laura, this is about the charges you get when you go overdrawn. So it's like a temporary loan as far as the bank's concerned. You do get charged, don't you, if you go over your limit. What they're saying, what they seem to be suggesting, is that these charges are extortionate.
Well, it could be up to 180% of the sum borrowed. So you could have an overdraft of just £10 and then have to pay back £180 after 2 months, which is just extraordinary, really. And the fact that it's more than loan sharks, when you hear the word loan sharks and these lenders, you think, stay away from them, I'll go to my bank, I'll do the sensible thing. £10 going over, I mean, that's very easy to do. If you're not watching, you don't pay it back instantly. You could be so easily caught. People don't check their statements all the time.
And we've had really high-profile campaigns in Parliament against loan sharks, but the fact that you can have some overdrafts charging 7 times more is really shocking, and I think it will affect lots of your viewers watching as well. It's quite extraordinary. And, you know, it mentions NatWest, but it includes Lloyds and Santander as well, for example, demanding £160. After
I suppose it depends on the deal as well that you have with your bank, because there's different overdraft deals, isn't there? And I suppose it depends on how much that overdraft is as well. Again, I suppose it's just down to doing your research and holding your banks accountable.
It just feels mad that you get, you know, £10. I can understand if it's £1,000, you get a big fine.
You're sounding like Martin Lewis now. You're going to launch your own campaign.
Watch out, Martin. Watch out.
I'm sure he'll be on it right now. He'll be launching his campaign tomorrow. Right, let's move on to the Mail. New blow for 21 million savers. I told you it was just going to get worse and worse, didn't I? It is very much about money tomorrow, isn't it? National savings interest rates are cut, and so is your chance of bringing a premium bond prize. So even if you want to save or invest, Aisha, there's still trouble ahead. Yeah,
this is a bit of a technical story, but it seems like it's going to affect a huge amount of people, 21 million savers. So essentially, government-backed savers accounts are going to be affected with interest rates being slashed. And I think for a lot of people, when they perhaps are banking on these savings, are going to wonder, like, what on earth is going on? I mean, you know, they perhaps thought that their money would be safe, and then suddenly one day it's not. I think a lot of people will be really worried about this.
Yeah, I'm just going to save the Treasury, they think, £6 billion. But also it's those premium bonds. So, you know, if you have premium bonds, you get these prizes, but they're going to reduce the number of prizes by a third. It's just another disincentive to save. And these are meant to be government-backed accounts. You sort of think the government will be doing the right thing and trying to back you. And
there is a theory that they do want us to spend, though, don't they? Because obviously that boosts the economy. I mean, when you look at some of the interest rates around, even in savings accounts in banks, it's like 1%.
Yeah. I mean, Ros Oldham's point, she's a former pensions minister, she's saying, you're telling people to save, you're trying to encourage people, and this is just a kick in the teeth.
Yeah, or not get into debt at least. You know, save up the money and stay away from the credit cards. But the pressure's on Theresa May to step in. It's been talked about, isn't it? It's not
and MPs are calling for her to step in.
Now, this gets interesting, doesn't it? It's that kind of glass half full, half empty, depending what way you look at it, of how the vote regarding Brexit and how it's going to be delivered, that white paper. Let's look at how The Guardian reports on tonight's vote. May tells MPs, take it or leave it over Brexit. Aisha, this is basically about how the negotiations go ahead and how much say MPs have, which is very little going by the vote tonight.
Yes, exactly. So, you know, the headline, take it or leave it, it basically is saying that for Theresa May, triggering Article 50 is so much closer now. There's, you know, tomorrow is like the final day that you will hear discussions about it. But I mean, you know, the fact that the government won today, I think, was a huge boost for Theresa May. You know,
you should explain. There was a group of MPs that wanted to have a say in the process on every single clause in the deal with the EU, which could basically have sent Theresa May back to the negotiating table if they rejected it. It could have gone on for years.
Exactly, and you know, you had some rebel MPs, even on the Tory benches, who you know, basically voted the other way today, and I just think it's intriguing, and the fact that you have the Times covering it completely differently as well.
Completely different take, isn't it? MPs will vote on Brexit deal after forcing May's hand. A completely different perspective, Laura.
But so from my point of view, we already knew that they'd get a vote. And my reading of this is, the reason I think the Times have covered it in this way is that MPs now believe they'll have a greater say. They'll have more of an influence, have more power to influence it, because Theresa May will have to present it to them and they'll go, this is a load of rubbish. But the point is, even if they go, we're not happy with this, it's deal or no deal. So you vote for it, or you vote for something worse than it, which is just we go with tariffs set by the WTO. So the government are going to win. They're going to win regardless. I mean, there's this idea that they've got more powers to influence, maybe, but really.
And
you
of
know
course, we
you're
have to
going to
remember
win.
there was a referendum, and they're delivering the result of that referendum.
And that's what they do, and that's always been in line. Is the country decided we're going to pass this bill. Tomorrow's the final vote. It will get through.
And it was sort of reported as though it's some sort of concession, but I don't think that's the case
Initially, and Labour initially went, oh, this is a concession, and then slowly people realised, actually, no, this isn't really a massive concession.
So we're all broke, we're potentially being ripped off, and there's very little salad and broccoli to eat as well. Let's go to the Financial Times and talk vegenomics at the root of the salad crunch. So even if we had the money to buy food, there isn't any food to buy.
This is an incredible story. So apparently,
I'm sorry, I'm trying to find a cheery story. We'll try our best in the next 2 minutes.
There's a courgette crisis. Apparently, there's been you know, bad weather conditions in southern Europe, and so as a result, some supermarkets are having to ration how many courgettes they sell to customers and iceberg lettuces, and I think for a lot of people that's quite alarming.
I think our viewers are probably losing the will watching this.
I mean, I like this vegenomics, and the point of this article is basically normally, if you've got a small supply, you increase the prices to encourage people to go buy other things. But supermarkets are so reluctant to increase prices that they're just going, no, we'll stick it the same. Just don't buy as many, please. But I actually think the point of this is we should be eating fruit and vegetables that are in season.
Well, also, or just buy local. There's actually some top tips on the BBC News website about alternatives to the veg that we're relying on from the grow your own.
Like Jeremy Corbyn.
Yeah, there you go.
Bit hard on a balcony, but yeah, grow your own. Look, if you're feeling down, we can always follow the Obama example and just chillax, basically. After one of the toughest jobs in the world, life after the White House is going swimmingly well for Obama, says the Daily Telegraph. He's with Richard Branson, I believe, isn't he?
He is, on Necker Island.
I mean, if you had been a former president, you'd be chilling out with a billionaire, wouldn't you? And going kite surfing. I mean, it's an amazing picture. I love it.
I love it. Also, it's interesting, Richard Branson's really getting involved with some issues. You know, he got involved with Brexit. Is this a sort of message to Trump? I don't know. He's putting himself in the limelight quite a lot.
It's a big question, isn't it, what Obama does next, actually. They're staying in Washington, aren't they? But at the moment, it doesn't look like he's...
at the moment...
he's got too many plans.
He still beat Branson, apparently. In
he did beat Branson, yeah. Well, come on, it's Barack Obama. You're going to let him win, aren't you? Laura, thank you very much for taking us through the papers. And thanks to you as well for watching. Don't forget, you can see the front pages of the papers online on the BBC News website. It's all there for you, 7 days a week at bbc.co.uk/papers. And if you missed the programme any evening, you can watch it later on BBC iPlayer. Thanks to Laura and Aisha for that, and thanks for watching. Goodbye.